What's good? I'm Tanya Faison, Black Lives Matter Sacramento. This is the Negus is Tired podcast. This is our fourth episode. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves in case this is the first time you're watching us. I'll go ahead and let y'all introduce yourselves. Victor, you can go first.
Hey everybody, my name is Victor. I'm here with Black Lives Matter Sacramento. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, I'm Brandon, also with Black Lives Matter Sacramento. Hope y'all are doing well out there.
What's up, family? My name is Bishoy. Also Black Lives Sacramento. Glad to just be here and really offer another show, drop some wisdom and definitely learn from the folks in here and from y'all.
Maybe we can give more information behind us. A lot of people know who I am, so I probably don't want to give too much, that people already know, but like the people that are in this space, maybe they need to get to know us a little bit more, know what we do, know some of our experiences and, what brought us into this space. So today's show is going to be very random. We have two topics that we're going to talk about, but I'm going to be throwing things in unexpectedly at folks. And we're just going to kind of just go with the flow with the show. So first, Brandon, if you want to tell them a little bit about you.
All right, yeah. Right now I'm a student. I'm a student at Sac State. I'm new to the area in general. I'm from the East Coast originally. But I came out here and moved out here at the beginning of this year and kind of just like looked around and it's, I don't know, the world in general makes me like angry, sad, and all that. Trying to do some stuff. I joined Black Lives Matter Sacramento. I started going to the protests in like June. I was like, yo, this feels good. This feels good. So, it feels good to do some work. It feels good to help people out right now in jail, just help people find resources, trying to help out the Black community in general here feels really good. And I enjoy the work I do. I got my own personal issues, but this stuff feels good to do. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, but Bishoy?
Yeah, so I think more specifically why I came into this work, and specifically with BLM, actually came from Tanya. And I told Tanya this story pretty recently. In about 2015, I went to the Reclaim the Dream March. Yep, we both got matching tats. And I heard Tanya do the Asada chant. And that shit made me cry. And, we know how powerful Tanya is. And I think it spoke volumes to me of, what work I really need to be doing. And eventually, the work that I do outside of this is, I teach. And so, for me, it's so pivotal to turn to BLM and to really kind of focus on, I think, a lot of these, a lot of the grassroots and, upfront, um, stuff, right? Because I think teaching has been such a struggle for me in terms of, working within the system, right? I mean, a teacher works within the educational system, which is, bound to oppress and murder Black youth. And so, looking at BLM is not only necessarily a release from being working within the system, unfortunately, but I think it allows me to really fully grow, I think, where I'm infiltrating. So what that means, the educational system, but also to just completely reimagine um, what I'm meant to do. So, I think part of it's a little selfish, not gonna lie, in terms of like that alone work and that alone growth. But the other piece is really this is work that our people have done, and this is work that is mandatory, is demanded of us to continue doing. So that's definitely why I'm here.
Okay, Victor?
Man, yeah. So I was an educator at Los Rios Community College for a long time, kind of teaching folks how to advocate. I think what activated me was the helplessness of Trayvon when it happened, and kind of seeing that pattern, and not necessarily having a place or a way of organizing against it. I think when it started to hit home in Sacramento and looking at the patterns of what happened in SAC was amazing. And I watched Tanya and BLM do some amazing work at city council around, getting things like a police oversight commission, trying to move a lot of those options forward and having this dialogue in a way that I hadn't seen before in Sacramento. It wasn't like, oh, will you do this? Or it was like, nah, this is what we want you to do. Like this is what needs to be done. And I saw a lot of things start to be moved in Sacramento based off of the way that BLM SAC was moving. So I appreciated that and wanted to be able to support it. I come to this work as an abolitionist and wanting to break down that system, because to me, that's at the center of what generates or continues to generate a lot of our problems. And I don't think until that system is removed, that we'll see a lot of the harms that we face as a community start to dissipate. So I think just how we see ourselves and how we relate to that system itself is really important to me. And yeah, man, it's just continuing to move the ball forward and continue to make the demands of the places that we're in for the changes that we need. So yeah, I love being here.
Thank you. I'll briefly do mine. So I got activated by a lot of different things, a couple different things throughout my life, but I think the final straw was Oscar Grant. Yeah, and so that motivated me to start something, but I didn't think I'd be doing it here in Sacramento. I thought I'd be a support system to another community. But we learned real quick that Sacramento had a really bad police murdering problem. So we have, our load is full here. We have, I want to say like 16 people that have died since we've been doing the work, or since I've been doing the work. Maybe a little bit less than that, because two of the people were before that are on our list of people that we advocate for. But yeah, so Sacramento keeps us super busy. I do want to check in. The reason I want to have a check-in with our people is because I feel like we need to set the tone. This is something that we need to do as a people, is we need to have some type of support system. If you don't have one, then build it. I believe in that. Like, you can build it. Friends, if you ain't got no family, make family. But we should be checking in with each other, especially in 2020, because this year has been very full. It's been very, very, very full. So the elections are over, and there's still activity going on in the streets. There's still stuff going on in politics. People are still being killed. People are still being lynched in our city. I don't know if y'all know, but there was someone that was hung in Citrus Heights. They're trying to say it was suicide. We don't know the description of this person. They're not saying his ethnicity, which makes me think that he's not white. So, and we know that there's a lot of, racism going on around town. So, with that being said, I just want to check in with people. I know the weather also impacts people as well. So, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just ask people, and then I guess I'll go last. How about Victor? Let's check in with you. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I think I feel like what the name of the podcast is called. Like, I'm tired. Like, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. There's so much. You mentioned so much that's going on. Black men do not hang themselves. Like, that is not a way that we go out. Like, we just don't do that. And to know that that's happened in Citrus Heights, to know that we've seen that happen outside of Roseville as well, is just one of those things where, we know the history of it. We know how Sacramento deals with racism overall. Like they either try to sweep it under the rug, or they don't say anything about it. So I think that, yeah, so that kind of is flowing in one way. I think nationally, knowing that, folks have died with a Subway sandwich, and then, the most recent, federal execution of, it's just like in all aspects, I think there's an exhaustion of always seeing Black Death when it comes to, whether it be at the local level, or the state level or the federal level. There's always just this sense of Black Death. So it's tiring, but I think for me, I'm hopeful, and I'm really hopeful about these new transitions that I'm hoping that are coming in for the 21st of this month. Like I'm hoping that activation happens for us and brings us into some new spaces. So that's what I'm looking forward to. It's my check-in.
You said exhausted, and it's not funny, but it's funny that like Black folks, we either get exhausted or we put up our protections, our defense mechanisms, and then we become desensitized. And so I think that kind of explains like why you have some folks that are inactive, because they don't want to be exhausted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think yeah, I hear that, and I think it goes. I think the exhaustion is there either way. You know what I mean? I think either from carrying the stoic face, because that's one part of it, right? You know what I mean? Where we walk through it as if it doesn't affect us. That's still a level of exhaustion, because you're still putting on an aspect of it, or you're doing the work and you're exhausted because it's never ending. Both of them are a level of exhaustion. But I think for me, at least not having to hold the stoic face, like that just doesn't feel authentic anymore. You know what I mean? Like I know that I have to do it to move through some of the things that I have to see, but I just don't think the stoicness of it and not being affected by it is authentic. Like it fucking hurts, and it's exhausting to see. But I know I'm not the only. I know one, I'm not the only person who's experiencing that, and then it's good to be in community with folks who are doing the work, or just in community, period. You know what I mean? To be able to know and acknowledge, like, hey, I see that, I see you, I see what's happening. Like, you're not the only one experiencing that. You're not the only one going through that today, and that's that's always a lift.
Agree. Yeah, it's necessary. All right, Brandon, you want to check in?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I mean, what Victor said is very accurate. It's exhausting. Constantly like seeing Black Death everywhere. That junk's tiring. I don't think it's like weighs on your soul. Like it's hard to. It's easy to be like immobilized by it, to like want to give up, and I would say like that's been weird. Also being at home, with like obviously with COVID and everything, not leaving the house, like it's easy for all that to get really heavy, like really heavy. I don't know. It's been rough. I mean, but it's been rough. It's been rough for I'm sure everybody. Like, but I'm trying to stay busy as much as possible. Trying to do things. Talking to a therapist. Medication, all that stuff. That stuff all helps out. But no, it's been rough. Like it's been insane. I don't know. I don't know how to even express what that feeling is of like almost hopelessness. I don't know. I don't even feel like hopeful. I feel more like pessimistic than anything, because I feel like over and over again you expect people to do the right thing. You expect this country to do the right thing, and every turn they do the wrong thing. It's never. I just don't see it ever getting better. That's honestly, I feel more pessimistic than anything else. I don't feel any kind of hopefulness or optimism or anything. I just don't. That's not where my head's at right now. So that's just where I'm checking in right now. That's where I'm at.
I feel it. I know a lot of times media folks will be like, so Tanya, are you hopeful or are you optimistic? And I'd be like, no. Like, are you kidding me? Has there ever been a moment to prove to me that I should feel optimistic? I mean, we've had small wins, and they're not small, they're huge, because any win that we get is huge with the hill that we're up against. But it's like we haven't seen the change that we need to see yet. So yeah, I get it. We haven't seen it. And every time we start to see it, it goes away. Like right when we get hopeful and we're like, oh, change is about to come, it's like, nope, they take it away.
Yeah,
Especially this city. The city is trash.
it's
When I
ridiculous.
say that, I mean the government. The city government is trash.
It's ridiculous the way people rationalize Black people dying. The way people are just like, oh, well, this. Like they give like 18 different reasons why it happened, and you know, they're cool. Like nothing happened. Like nothing's happening. Like it's not an issue. Like they're just too comfortable. They're too comfortable with it. They're just too comfortable with us dying. They're too comfortable with us, you know, being disenfranchised in whatever way. Like I don't know. It's really, it's insane. It's insane.
Yep. Bashoy?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm feeling the same. I think my heart is really heavy at the moment. I think there's exhaustion. And I think, you know, at times, and this is gonna sound so weird. Like I've been trying to, since, you know, I think both Brandon and Victor, you know, say it's so exhausting and it's so tiring, and it's hard to be around Black death so much, to see it, to witness it, to, you know, to have to be around it. And so, you know, I think in the same manner, just in the spaces that I'm in, especially as a educator, it's so hard, and I think pressure and exhausting to also be around such beautiful Black life. And what I mean by that is because there is a pressure, right? And so for me, you know, I specifically work with young Black boys, and there, you know, it's a pressure to have to try to, deservingly so, give them the best possible, whether that means education, whether that means just like physical basic needs. It's so hard, right? Because, you know, it begins to feel like Black folks don't deserve mediocrity, right? And that's all we've been given is mediocre, right? Within education systems, within social service systems, within every system, it's nothing but mediocrity. And so, you know, when we're in spaces and you know, as abolitionists, we come into these spaces, and especially, you know, for me with education, it's so fucking tiring being around, you know, in a white workforce where, you know, folks are like, no, let's celebrate these wins with our youth. And I'm like, no, these are beautiful Black babies. And I see, you know, in the work that I'm doing outside of this, I see what happens. And it's hard. It's hard to see that, because you look at these young Black boys' eyes and you worry, right? These, like, I'm not that much older than them, and yet it feels like, damn, these are my children, right? I have such a responsibility to these young folks, to support them, and to support them, especially navigating a system like schooling, right? That really, I mean, to me, kills Black youth more than anything else, is schooling. And so, you know, it's so heavy, I think, for me it's been so hard, because I think, like you said, we don't get many W's. We don't get many. Our records are below 500. And you know, that's just how the system works. And so, you know, I think of that too, of like, shit, I don't get many W's, and it could be so hard, because you want to walk out of every class or whatever it is, you know, saying like, okay, you know, these Black boys, they're gonna live to see another day, right? And that's the hope, right? And not more than that. And it's actually sad for me to be like, that's the hope, right? Because we asking them to survive, when really, an abolitionist, as Black folks, we demand thriving. And I'm just hoping that they survive the next day. So, you know, it's painful. It's definitely painful, and it weighs heavy.
I say so.
Go ahead.
So, man, I love and I appreciate that, not like in so many different ways, right? And I think for me, I think the power and the pessimism, like where it pivots for me, I'm not pessimistic about Black folks. Like, never that. You know what I mean? I'm like, because we not a problem. Like that's like we're not the problem. And that to me always brings me joy. You know what I mean? Like the pessimism that I put out is I'm looking at how others view my body, how others view my community, how they like what ways we have to navigate inside of a world that wasn't built for us. But my community itself is not a problem. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of the exhaustion is that we go out into these other spaces and we're like, I know we're going to talk about some of these things today, but it's like, bruh, these are babies. You know what I mean? Like when you have to go downtown and look a grown ass man who has a billy club, 2 tasers, 4 guns, a shotgun, a vest, a riot gear helmet, and you got to be like, bruh, put your finger off the trigger. Like that right there is a baby. Like that's a child who's upset, but that's nonetheless a child. Like, yeah, he may look like he's 6'2", but that nigga's 12. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's out here upset because of some shit that you did, and there's no reason for you to be scared of that baby. That's a kid, So I think for me, that's the level of exhaustion where it's like, you don't see that baby. You know what I mean? You don't see that, like you don't see that as a child, and so for me, I think that's. Those are the levels of exhaustion. But for the people, it's good, man. We ain't never been the problem. And that in itself is the problem. Like we ain't never been a problem. It's always been about trying to get other people to pivot to see like, why y'all see like that? Why you act like that? So for me, yeah, that's that just to, sit on that kind of like where that pessimism sits at. I hear it. Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I'm finding, I'm not going to cover with everything that y'all have said has been so on point, and then I don't want to like bring us down more. So I'm going to say something. I feel like that part of where we're at and why there is such solemnness, you know what I mean, is because we are lacking spaces with each other. We are lacking the opportunity to be with each other and have Black spaces and have Black celebratory, like every time that we go to create some kind of celebratory space for Black people. And these are the spaces that heal us. Like this is where we get healing. This is where I get healing anyway. Like that heals me to be in spaces with my people. Every time we go to do that, like we can't. Like, okay, we were able to do it now. No, you can't now. And I think that's what's making it hard, like making this year harder. What's making this season harder is because we can't be in space with each other. So yeah, the last couple days, some really great things have happened or are in the process of happening. And so I'm super excited inside. Like inside of me, I'm super excited. But I'm always pissed off. And so I'm pissed off at the system, how it's moving. I'm pissed off at how we came so far in this movement. And then now it's, it's on pause, like everything's on pause. And then I'm pissed off at white folks for being activated just for Trump and then like walking away as soon as Biden won. But I predicted that, but I'm still pissed off about it. So I'm pissed off, but then I'm hopeful, like we have things that we're trying to work on, like getting this land, right? And we're getting closer to that. And like, I keep, we're able to like, we've been getting, people have been donating to us and I've been able to add that money to our pile of money that we have for this land that we want to buy. So that makes me more hopeful, makes me more optimistic for that. Also, I talked to some people yesterday that want to do work with us. And then also like some Netflix things might be happening. We'll talk about it tomorrow at our meeting. But like, I'm just super excited about a lot of things, but I'm also angry. And I'm also wishing that I could hold space with my people. Like even our meetings, like we're Zoom everything now, right? And while this is, it's necessary and I feel safer doing this, I still would rather be with my folks. Like people that stand too close to me now, I'm irritated by it. And I don't like that change in me. I don't like having to pause before I hug somebody or not hug somebody when I see them or elbow them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that shit. I'm tired of that shit. But I mean, the world has changed as we know it. And I feel like it's a permanent change. I feel like our mouths showing is going to one day be like private parts showing, like, oh my God, she's showing everybody her mouth. Like, so that's where I'm at. Like, I'm half and half, not even half and half. I'm like 3/4 and 1/4. I'm 1/4 excited and I'm ready to see these changes that we've been working toward. But the other 3/4, I'm super just sick of all the death in our city. I'm sick of people handling these deaths in the wrong ways. I'm sick of people doing things like, and I'm saying people, but like us, community, like I'm sick of us like going to a stage and declaring how mad we are that our youth are being killed in the street, but like we're not taking steps to like actually fix the problem. And I get frustrated with that because I feel like we're not seeing as a people, we're not seeing that we're acting like insanity, like we're doing the same things over and over and expecting change, and it's not happening. And so it's very frustrating for me. Those things are frustrating. The fact that we're being killed in the street is frustrating. The fact that racists are walking around very openly, you know, they could just do it and nothing happens, that's frustrating. So that's my check-in. I don't know, that was full, but that's my check-in. All right, does anybody want to add anything to that? No? Okay, so we're gonna go on to our topics. I'm gonna change one of the topics. I'm gonna change it to, well, the first one that we're gonna talk about is performative politics. We had a meeting and it's funny because we met like, what was it, a week ago that we talked about this? And I already have forgotten like exactly what we talked about, but was reminded. That's how my brain works. Um, but being effective in this work, I feel like that's the focus, is like being effective and um, being strategic. And when we talk about performative, that's what we're talking about, like being effective, being strategic, doing things that are going to impact what we're fighting. And so I want us to have conversations about it, whether it's with our government or with our other community members in the streets with us. But like, you know, performative, we've been seeing a lot of performative actions over the last year. I was gonna say over the last couple of months, but let's just say the whole year. Because our mayor sat in his living room while 2,000 people were outside of his house. And he said that 2,000 people came to his house and they want change and he's gonna bring it. And now here we are. That was in, wait, what month was that? That was in the summer. Here we are and it's the winter. It's almost the end of the year. And yeah, I'm gonna let y'all. Victor looks like he wanna say something. So go ahead, Victor.
Right. To me, our mayor has been nothing but performative. In any way that it comes to like addressing the issues of what happens when it comes to Black death or Black community inside of Sacramento. I think we've seen the real mayor come out, like when he talks about decorum and how he protects the police and how he holds that aspect of it. But everything else to me is about him going on the news to try to garner some spin from it. Like nothing seems genuine from him. It's all about, this man has been in power for so many years, and the question is, what have you done differently? How have you moved differently when it comes to holding any of the police accountable, when it comes to any of these deaths? Because it's not like he inherited, like a lot of the blood is on his hands. But he'll come to the point of being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take a knee with you because I just woke up and realized that what happened there was wrong. And oh, it's 2,000 people sitting outside of my door right now and they want me to come out and change it. In fact, they came here for me to be able to join the protest with them. Like, no, your ass was supposed to come back down to City Hall and get to work and start figuring some of this shit out, not keep coming and taking knees and kumbaya. Like, but that's what he's really good at. He's good about talking and kumbaya, but never actually drafting or yielding that power to make anything change. General Steinberg is a performative and a performative contradiction at that, but he's one of the most performative people you can see, in my opinion.
He's an actor. He should be an actor.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, he's not very good at it though. So let's swerve it to within community. Just how we move, what we do, what our strategies are. How how we walk and talk. Who do we talk to? Who do we walk with? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people in community that are, and I'm going to say a lot because it is, I was going to say maybe not a lot, but yeah, it is a lot. There's a lot of people in community that are moving with the people that we're actually fighting, and they're calling it building a bridge. How effective is that? Like, well, what does that do to our movement? I'm going to tap on Bashoy.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though we swerve into community, I think it's so interconnected, um, in the sense that, I'm more specifically when we're talking about community, even the larger sense of, really any agents of revolutionary change, or, at least anyone who proposes to be such. I think that performative piece is something that uh, is so rooted in our culture in America. Like, I mean, so deeply rooted that we desire heroes, right? I kind of actually threw this. I said I just made a quick sentence last podcast about it, but folks love heroes, right? And so, you know, communities become so content, right? Whether we mean larger communities or even smaller communities, if we're talking specifically within, you know, the community of Sacramento, is folks become too content with the small victories, right? And I think that's the problem, right? Like, and that's not that, Tanya, you said just a few minutes ago, you're like, all victories against the system are big victories, which is true. And for me, it's also right. There's that balance of like BLM-SAC does not sit in the victory for too long. Is great. Now let's get to work, right? And I think so often, especially because this country is rooted in whiteness, and because this country is run by white folks, most folks in this country are white. They are content with complacency, right? And so for me, that performative piece is, you said it. The Biden piece is a primary example. Steinberg is another primary example. They might move in a way where it will make the majority of people in this country happy, because the majority of this country is white. I mean, that's just the truth. The majority of this country is fine if Biden wins. Hey, at least that's a step in the right direction. If Steinberg comes up and he jumps in and he goes on his pulpit and he makes a statement, and let's say he does make a statement like that was a wrongful murder of a black person in Sacramento, it becomes so performative because by definition the institution cannot be anything else, right? Institutions rewrite themselves, and the way they rewrite themselves is by offering performative politics and performative actions that people become content with, right? Because then they can move in a way that's exactly BLM, right? Black Lives Matter has become a fad, or however whatever the word is, right? It's become a trend, right? It's become so performative, not necessarily in what individuals do and what communities do in the work, right? But it's become so performative that you have institutions, right? Capitalist institutions saying BLM because it profits them, right? In the same way that you have politicians, you have people that make performative moves and performative actions and say the right things because it pleases the majority of the community, right? And I think it's because, white folks in this community are content because it doesn't affect them, right? They're content with Biden winning because they don't recognize the effects that it has on black folks. They're content with Steinberg taking a knee because they don't understand that changes literally nothing at the rate of black death in Sacramento, right? Because they're not black. So I mean, I think it ties back to community. I'm rambling on because I'm frustrated, but it's because I think how the community really takes in actions by the institutions and by these empires. If we celebrate these institutions for making a step in a direction that they're 2,000 years behind, of course they're going to be stagnant. Of course we're going to remain stagnant. So that's just my piece on it. Right? I think it's responsibility on communities and it's collective accountability as a whole.
Yeah, I had to write down two things while you were talking because you made me think of two things I didn't want to forget. When you said, it's people are trying to please the majority, it's like basically that's when you start looking at the intentions of the person that's doing it, because they're lobbying the community. They're not supporting it, they're not fixing it, they're lobbying it. And so when you're lobbying the community, that means that you have a goal in your future to have the community's support. So you're doing what the community wants to hear instead of fixing the community so that they can support you in the future, which means you're probably going to run for office. You know what I mean? Like that's how we have to look at people in community with us that do these things, because they're building these bridges, so to say, and I'm putting that in quotations because it's not building any bridges at all. All we're doing is creating a facade of unity with a police department that's murdering us. Um, they unify with us, they kneel at our churches, in our communities, they go to Oak Park and go to a Black church and they kneel with Black people, and then they go out and then they murder us or they shoot us in the face with their blood. So I'm getting pissed off talking about that. My second thing that I wrote down was strategy, and that's what I'm going to swerve into at this part. And I think what you said, it made me think of how important strategy is. And so everything that an organizer does, or everything that an activist involves himself in, it has to be strategically effective, right? And not all strategies have, like, people always say, and I had mentioned this earlier in a completely different conversation, but like people always say, oh, don't protest, it's not going to do nothing, yada yada yada. And don't march, like marching has never saved us, we're still in the same position. And those are, okay, that's the truth, we are in the same position, and marching did not fix it. But marching's and protesting's purpose is to mobilize people, is to educate people. And so there's a strategy, right? That's the strategy of protesting and marching. And so people don't often look at things strategically, they look at them through the lens of a fix or not a fix. And that is also white supremacist behavior. This either or mentality is white supremacist behavior, or characteristics, I'll say. And so we have to, and that's so ingrained in us that, like, even in our comments, somebody will be like, well, why'd you do this? They didn't do this. And it's like, okay, but there's a root of the problem. And if we're only looking at the surface of our problems, then we can't be strategic. If we don't think deeper, then we can't be strategic. And we have to be strategic because this system is strategic. This system has strategically ended movements. So, and they have physically tried to do that to ours on numerous times. So we have to be so strategic. And so now I'm rambling, and I'm gonna move on in the capacity of strategy when it comes to performances by performative people doing performative work in our community or against our community. Like, I'm trying to think of how I want to position this question. What do you think? How impactful, like, why is it so important for us to be so strategic? Like, let's elaborate on strategy, just strategy, period. I'm gonna go to Brandon. I know that's a probably a heavy load question, but Brandon, it's your turn.
So, I mean, we're talking about strategizing. I mean, to start, I mean, I think it's difficult for us as a community to strategize in an effective way when at every turn throughout the history of this country, when Black people try to make advancements, they try to chop off the head of the movement every time. I mean, the head of the actual activists, not athletes, not athletes, not singers, not movie stars. I'm talking about like actual activists. Throughout the history, they end up dead, in prison, or out of the country. And there's a reason for that, because every step of the way, like, white people don't like us trying to make advancements in the United States. So it's hard to strategize now. I mean, I can go back to the performative, because like now as a community, I feel like we look up to like athletes, we look up to these people who aren't activists. They just happen to, play a sport or act really well. They do those things. We look up to them. And I mean, I think they have like their plans, they have their little portions, but it all goes back to the grassroots and how we have to organize ourselves. And we have to be careful about the way we organize, because we got to go in a certain way so that we don't end up in that same position that other leaders have throughout the history of this country. I mean, and it's really difficult to strategize. I mean, it's difficult to get people to want to go out there and do the work. I mean, mm. and it's hard to strategize too because there's so much that needs to happen. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where to even begin. You know, it's just like there's fires everywhere. You don't know which one to put out. Like what are we like? What to even focus on? You're still focusing on one death, and then another Black person is murdered. You know, so then you got the next one. You got, it's just impossible. It's almost impossible. But I think it's just it's hard to strategize when that happens so often, and there's a general apathy to the death, to the continuous loss of rights, or the continuous, like, I don't know, it's hard. Like, it's hard for me to explain exactly what I want to say here, but I don't know, strategizing is just so difficult right now, just because I just don't feel like there's enough people. There's just never enough. There's never enough people. There's never enough resources. It's really difficult. It's hard.
And people tend to come out when it benefits them.
Yeah. And
that's another problematic behavior, but that's why it's so, like, when it's just work and hard and, no benefits are attached to it, and there's no guarantee of anything, then people rarely come out. Like, the people that come out in those times, those are the true, like, those are the fighters, right? Because we don't know what we're gonna get. We just know we got to keep going. But like you said, like I always say, I'm trying to manifest my freedom, but at the same time, we're the most unfree. Not just because we're Black, but because we're doing this work and we're surveilled. We're, what I mean? We know the history of people that do this work. So that balance, I get what you're saying. I hear you. The balance is hard. Does anybody else want to add to anything before I go to the next topic? Because I feel like we just chopped off that topic and it was deep.
Can I say something? I think it goes back to what you were saying before, which is we don't have a lot of spaces that are ours, right? And so I think that's one thing that I'm super excited about, is being able to have a space, that is ours, where we can talk and chill and heal. And I think strategically that's hella important, right? Because most of the spaces that we have already been co-opted or already surveilled. So even when we go into them, you know what I mean? Somebody's already looking to be like, what are these motherfuckers doing over here? And I think the other thing that gets me to why this performative shit makes me hella mad is because growing up for me, anytime we had more than two of us together, we were a gang. We were like just three of us being like, if this group of people were to be hanging out at a corner chopping it up right now, they'd be like, look at the gang of Black folks on the corner right there, right? Like, their view of us being in groups have been so criminalized. So I think strategically, one, we do need to reclaim those spaces. That's why gentrification is so fucked up. And then two, not seeing ourselves when we are in groups of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 as being something negative, right? But that's something that's been put towards us. And then I think also strategically, we have to look, especially when it comes to performances, we have to look at what people do and not what they say. And to me, like, the thing that used to make me mad about the MLK march that happened in Oak Park, like, when I roll up there and there's more motherfucking police there than it is people in the march, I'll be like, bro, no, I'm not doing this. Like, that's not what MLK was about. So I think part of it is we gotta see when we're being used in situations. You know what I mean? Like, when they come into the church and want to kneel and when they want to do those things, we also have to see when we're being stretched and used in those situations. And then yeah, man, I think it's about what that person does. Like, when it comes to Steinberg, that person has been very, very critical about squashing voices strategically when it comes to his meetings, not having folks be able to participate in it, awarding officers who have, killed members of our community. Like, there's nothing performative that man can do to show me that he's on the side of Black people. Like, when you give medals to people for killing other people, like, and you never even come out and apologize for that kind of shenaniganery, like, nah. What people do outweighs what people perform. And when they start performing, I always look at it like, where did this come from? Like, why is this here? That's it.
Somebody just asked, somebody just said they commented, and I don't normally do this. Well, sometimes I do. It depends on the comment. But they just said all those people that came out, they want to help. I think this is Dee Dee Welch that said this. I think that BLM needs to have specific guidance of, and then she said what to do in all caps next. So I just want to speak to that really quick. I don't know her ethnicity because from this screen that I'm on, I can't go to her page. I can't see if she's black or white. But I do want to address that Black Lives Matter Sacramento has given so many action items in the last couple months, and we've had events where nobody shows up. So, Dee Dee, please, if you want to know what to do next, follow our page. And oh, she commented she's white as rice. So, yeah, follow our page. And when we ask for your help, if you really want to help, then help us. If we say this is who you need to call or email, then by all means do that. If we say we're going to be up at Arden Mall or somewhere, or the mamas, this and that, show up. When we have a visual for Marshall Miles and that family needs support from the community, then pull up. But since you also stated that you're white as rice, it's really not, as a white person, you might want to go to honestly, I'm just going to say, go to the Allies page and ask them what you should do, because as white folks, y'all should be doing more work than us, period, for your people, to get your people and to stop this madness, because y'all started it. We didn't. So anyways, do you want to say something too, Bishoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to connect Dee Dee and to connect, I think the topic of strategy, one, I'm going to say on that topic, just because folks are right behind us on the protest doesn't mean they with us, right? Just because you're walking next to me in a march, in a protest, doesn't mean you're with us, right? And I think we have to stop this really white agreement, almost unspoken agreement in every space that we have to assume best intentions. I'm not going to assume best intentions for any white person, because historically, that's never been the case. Historically, nothing good has ever come from a group of white folks. And then you're going to tell me to assume and tell us to assume you have the best intentions or that you came out for the right reasons. That's just not historically accurate, right? And I think leading into strategy, not only, Victor said we got to look at what people do, not what they say. We also got to look at what people did, right? We got to look historically how have people moved, right? Not just white folks, not just institutions, not just the system, right? But we need to reflect back on how our people, how movements, how revolutionaries have moved, right? And strategized and pivot from there, right? Like we've seen time and time again, we've seen so many movements. We've seen Black folks time and time again create movements and create shockwaves in this country to liberate themselves and our people. And so it's, to me, so important to reflect on history, because history does not lie, right? And history tells us that when we are disconnected as a community, we already lost. Right? When we are disconnected as a community, we're already lost. When we are in it for ourselves, we're already lost. Right? And when we don't strategize and we don't converse and allow folks to converse together on how we're going to strategize, there's always a time to move wisely, and there is always a time to fuck shit up. Right? I think it could be both. It's both and, right? There are times where we got to move wisely and we got to know exactly, where to step, how to move, how to walk. Right? And there are times where, yes, we could fuck shit up. We can move in a way that's maybe, I wouldn't even call it unorganized, but to maybe folks out there is not, oh, you're not moving in the right way. And so, it's all about just reflecting on history and what's worked and what needs to be changed and what needs to change. Right? If the institution and the system continually changes, so do we. That's naturally how it works.
Okay, so thank you. I was gonna like read you her other comments because she's been responding to us as we've been talking to her, but I'm not gonna center her anymore. This is a Black space for Black people to get information that they don't get from white spaces. So, and to also be held in a certain way. The Allies of Black Lives Matter Sacramento page is a page to follow if you want to learn and you're not Black. And this goes, this is the topic change that I'm doing. I'm going to go back to our mission. And I think this is a perfect time for us to go to our mission and talk about it. Let me pull it up so I have it in front of me. But I feel like we need to go back to like read each little short, because it's like maybe like a couple short paragraphs, and go through each short paragraph and actually discuss it. Because people don't seem to know what our work is, and they need to know what our work is. And we keep reminding y'all what our work is, but clearly it's not being heard. So bear with me one moment, I'm pulling this up. Our URL is so long. Let's see. So, and this, let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna read the first paragraph, and they're all very short. It's not a long piece, but we're gonna just be very detailed about this. So Black Lives Matter Sacramento is committed to pushing the line against systemic racism, state and local government sanctioned violence, and the violence and terrorism of Sacramento's Black communities, whether that comes in the form of rising rents and homelessness, low wages and poverty, mass incarceration, police terrorism, or murder by law enforcement. I feel like that's very blatant. Like there's not really much to elaborate on. It's basically saying that we're fighting violence that's systemic towards Black people, and violence comes with many different faces. And we gave examples of what that type of violence is. The next one is that we fight for all Black lives, whether they are African, Caribbean, African American, Afro-Latinx, Afro-Asian, etc., who are enduring sanctioned violence in the form of the denial of basic human rights, police brutality, and discriminatory policies that unfairly target communities of color. So I feel like that's pretty blatant too. Does anybody have anything to elaborate on that, or is that blatant for everybody? Okay. So the next one is we fight for all Black lives, affirming the lives of Black queer and trans folks, disabled folks, Black undocumented folks, folks with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. I'll elaborate a little bit on that. And I'm really big on this. I'm big about this. Like, all Black lives matter. So when 2 boys get killed at the mall and someone comes and asks, well, did they have a gun? That's them weighing whether or not their Black life mattered. All Black lives mattered. They all matter. And so I think that's important to state. Like, we're not going to play this. We're not going to play the theatrics of our system by placing a person's worth on a spectrum of 1 to 10. You know, somebody's worth more based on if they've got a college degree or if they wore their pants around their waist or whatever. So that's what that is for. Does anybody want to elaborate on that?
You know, I just tell my kids all the time. I say that you don't get to pick and choose what Black lives you fight for. That's not how this works, right? Either you fight for all Black lives, or you a traitor in that sense, right? Like you got to fight for every single Black person, no matter what, or you a traitor. Like I tell my kids that, and they like, because there are still some views that they hold on to, right? And so it's that just reiterating, like, no, if you in this work, you fight for every Black person. You don't pick and choose.
That's so real. I know somebody before the elections, there was a lot of commentary about Kamala Harris and like then the different Black people that were supporting Trump and all these other things. And people hate Candace, whatever her Owens. And I hate her too. But I made this statement, like, if I walk up to 7-Eleven and Candace Owens is outside and she's getting jumped by 2 Nazis, I'm gonna fucking jump in. I'm not gonna let her get beat up by no 2 Nazis, because her Black life matters. She's young still. So like, just like with Stephon Clark, when he was killed, they kept saying, well, he was this and he was that, and he hated women and he didn't like Black women. And it's like, he was 22 years old. He didn't get a chance to grow out of that shit. So like, we don't have the right to place any value on anybody's life. That is not anybody's position. So, okay. I'm gonna read the next one. It says, we fight for all Black lives, centering those that have been marginalized within Black communities through institutionalization, gang databases, or simply fitting the description that is often profiled, pulled over, and criminalized with broken glass laws. And examples of broken glass laws are windows tinted, probation searches, etc. So that just is saying basically we fight for our hood Black folks. They are a directly impacted Black people, and not just from the system, but within their own communities. They don't have many places to turn to. All they got is each other. That's why they only go to each other. And so we got to do better and try to help with that. Does anybody want to elaborate on that? I just started elaborating. My bad. Nobody? Okay. I only got 2 more short paragraphs. The next one says, Black Lives Matter Sacramento is committed to pushing the line to impact laws, policies, and ordinances that lean into community power, government oversight, and eventually the abolition of this system. Abolition. Creating structures within community where the people are the resources to the functioning of community protection and sustainability. Does anybody want to elaborate on that? Nope. Okay. The last one. And I feel like that was pretty blatant. If it wasn't, reread it. It's on our website, blacklivesmattersacramento.com. The last one, it says, lastly, Black Lives Matter Sacramento is committed to bringing joy, healing, and safe spaces into Black communities that are the most impacted and terrorized by sanctioned violence and intra-community violence. So why I felt like this was a good swerve into this conversation is because Dee Dee was asking us to teach her. She was saying she's just trying to learn and she thinks that we should be teaching her. And so if you read our mission, we completely center Black people. We center Black folks because nobody else is centering Black folks. And one thing that I always say to white folks, and this might be insensitive, but to white folks that always are asking for Black people to spend that emotional labor on them and teach them, is that nobody gave us any lessons on how to walk through this white system. Nobody taught us how to live in this white system. We were like those babies that they throw in the pool and they say, okay, swim, when they're an infant, and you just have to learn to swim or you're gonna fucking sink. And that's what we had to do. So there's so much information on the internet. There's so many resources in community. There's so many white spaces that talk about Black liberation work and they teach you shit. There's articles written by Black people that are willing to teach by writing that article for you. So please just do the legwork. One characteristic of white supremacy is depending on people of color to do the legwork for you. And that's not what we're here for. And so it's really important for white people to do that legwork and to make those efforts and actually act like an anti-racist individual instead of someone that is still leaning on their privilege to act like they want to do anti-racist work. Anybody want to add to that?
Amen. To me, I just think that we gotta break down this whole I'm not racist and then anti-racist stuff, because I think that goes into the whole performative. It goes into the whole performative thing too. Like, I'm looking at dead ass. I'm looking at a mayor who was out kneeling 3-4 months ago, right? Talking about I'm with y'all, I'm with the community. But we got mad ass racists sitting at the state right now, and that motherfucker ain't done he ain't done nothing. Like, where's he at then? Like, I want to see him out making a charge. Like, now we know where they're at. Like, it's not just your police boy. This is the homies the police homies is out there right now. And where's he at to say anything? But that's the difference between, oh, I'm not racist, and being an anti-racist. That's the difference between performing, oh, I'm not racist, I just want to be on your side, and being anti-racist, like, nah, that shit ain't cool. Like, every instance of it has to be challenged. You know what I mean? And it goes back to the way that they did that presidential debate where they were like, oh, denounce white supremacy. And he was like, oh, I just denounced the you're rude as fuck, but I love you. denounce white supremacy. Denounce white supremacy is like, oh, I'm just gonna denounce the Proud Boys. But that should have been a show-stopping moment. Like everybody should have stopped him and like, hey, nah, bro, we're not gonna let you just slip away with that. Like you don't just get to not deny white supremacy and just move it on as a topic. The same thing happens inside of our city government. They're allowed to be like, oh, we'll do this performative stuff, but when real substance comes up, you know, nobody challenges on the real substance of them being anti-racist. We should not have racist folks sitting at the White House right now, or sitting at the state capitol, and there not be arrest on their side, not moving them out. They're allowing domestic terrorists to sit on the lawn, and there's not a helicopter coming out for them. This motherfucker ain't called the National Guard out on them. Like, bro, when we come out in real protest just to grieve, he's called the National Guard out and shot rubber bullets at our people. Like that's the real reality of what he's done. You know, and he says it is on his side. But anyway, that's me.
Nah, I feel it. Like that's what we were talking about today. Like there's such a double standard, and like, yeah. And it needs to be seen. That's what, like, we have to denormalize white supremacy. I don't even know if that's a word, denormalize. I just made it up. If it wasn't a word, it is now. But we have to denormalize white supremacy, and part of it is not accepting it, right? Like when it happens in front of us and we just look at it and we just don't say anything about it, then we're complicit in the normalization of it. And I'm making up words today, so just bear with me. My name is E40. We're complicit in the normalization of it, right? Like we're allowing it to happen without any fight, right? And that's why it's so important, like, for us to make sure that shit is called out. Make sure that our folks that are supposed to be leaders of the city are actually leading this city. And because we know that they can, because they have before. And yeah, we talked about this earlier. It's a whole thing, and it's going to start a whole nother conversation, and this podcast is over. But we might have this conversation at our next podcast. But yeah, because we're trying to figure out how we need to handle something. And, you know, we're trying to figure out how to do it in a way that is not performative, but that is effective. But, you know, we also have to be very strategic in how we are effective. So that's what we do, y'all. We don't have a pig of the week this week. We got plenty of pigs of the week. We just didn't plan a pig of the week, but definitely there is a pig that could be a pig of the week. So don't get me wrong. We got hundreds and hundreds of pigs in the city that could be pig of the week, but we did not. I could just from the top of my head say somebody, maybe I could do that. I just don't have like pictures or nothing up of them. We did sing well. We did catch a caller, right? We did Officer Lawrence. How about Lieutenant, hold up, what's his name? Oh my God. Now I gotta go to Twitter. I feel like I'm really just not being good right now. Hold on. He's an asshole though. Oh God, I forget it. Cause I'm failing right now. I forget his name. He's with SAC PD. He's a lieutenant. He's with the Central Command. He's the one that called on the 83 arrests of people when Stephon Clark's killers went free and were not given any charges by the DA. Leong. I got it. It's Lieutenant Leong, Officer Leong. So he's our pig of the week. He's a troll. His whole goal is to arrest and brutalize. He's the only one that gives orders to brutalize protesters when we're out in the street. He's the main one. And it's always when Chief Han is sleeping somewhere. Sometimes it's out of town. But he does it when Chief Han isn't paying attention. He gives these orders and he makes the whole department look stupid and get sued. So Lieutenant Han, or Lieutenant Leong, Leong, follow him if you want to troll him on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter. He is our pig of the week, and he is a pig. So I just brought that off the top of my head. We good? Does anybody want to say anything else before we sign out? All right. This was good. Have a good one, y'all. Say bye to everybody.
You feel?
Take care of yourself.